Hello, Muslim friends of the world. Los Angeles was trembling with terrifying rumors. Anonymous intelligence reported that a mosque in the city center was allegedly being used as a hideout for armed groups. The government wasn't willing to take any risks, so a SWAT team was deployed to raid the site that very night. Captain Ryan Walker led his team with sharp focus. "We can't fail," he said inside the tactical vehicle speeding through the city. Behind him, dozens of team members prepared their weapons, ammunition, and shields. Adrenaline coursed through their veins. They had been trained to face threats, but none of them knew that this night would change their lives forever. When they arrived, the mosque appeared dark from the outside. However, a gentle chant could be heard from within, a sound unfamiliar to their ears. "What's that?" murmured one of the team members, peering from behind his shield. Walker signaled for them to breach. As the door was forced open, they were met with a sight that stunned them. Dozens of people knelt in neat rows, their faces bowed in calm, prostrating in worship. There was no sign of danger, no weapons in sight. Only an extraordinary serenity filled the air. Walker sensed something was off. "Hold your fire," he shouted. Yet the situation left his team baffled. What exactly were they witnessing? The SWAT team stood frozen, their weapons aimed but unused as the congregation continued their prayers, seemingly unbothered by the armed invaders. Even in the presence of rifles and shields, the worshippers remained focused, their movements synchronized, their faith unshaken. "What are they doing?" one of the SWAT members whispered, confusion etched on his face. Walker gave the order to sweep the premises. "Check every corner," he commanded. The team moved cautiously, flashlights scanning every inch of the mosque. But all they found were prayer rugs, holy books, and neatly arranged sandals. There were no weapons, no evidence of threats, just people deep in prayer. Ethan Cole, one of the team members, stood rooted to the spot, his ears catching every word recited by the imam. Though he couldn't understand the meaning, the rhythm and tone touched something deep within him, a longing for peace he had never found in his high-stakes, dangerous career. "Captain," Ethan whispered to Walker, who stood beside him, "this doesn't make sense. They don't look like a threat." Walker didn't respond, but his eyes remained fixed on the worshippers. He was struck by their calmness, their unwavering focus even in the face of danger. They didn't panic. They didn't resist. It was as if they believed their protection came not from humans, but from something far greater. Still unsure of what to think, Walker pushed down the uneasy feeling building in his chest. "Keep searching," he ordered. Yet with every passing moment, the doubt within him grew. Something about this place and these people defied all the narratives he had believed about them. The SWAT team stood guard at every corner of the mosque, their weapons raised as if bracing for a threat that never appeared. The air was heavy with anticipation, but the only sound that filled the room was the soothing recitation of verses from the Quran. It was a serenity they weren't prepared for, and for some it was unnerving. Ethan Cole, one of the SWAT officers, remained frozen in place, his ears attuned to the rhythmic chanting. Though he didn't understand the words, something about the sound resonated with him. It stirred a deep longing, an inexplicable desire for the peace that seemed to envelop this place. "Captain, this doesn't feel right," Ethan whispered to Walker, who stood beside him. "They don't seem like a threat." Walker didn't reply, but his jaw tightened as he observed the worshippers. They remained in prayer, their movements synchronized, their focus unwavering. No panic, no fear. Even with rifles pointed at them, they exuded an unshakable calm that Walker couldn't comprehend. "Search the premises," Walker ordered in a low voice. A few team members moved cautiously, sweeping through the rooms, opening doors and scanning with flashlights. But all they found were prayer mats, neatly arranged shoes, and copies of the Quran. No weapons, no suspicious activity, nothing remotely resembling a threat. "Captain," Ethan spoke again, more firmly this time, "what are we doing here? These people aren't our enemies. Look at them. They're not even afraid." Walker exhaled slowly, his resolve beginning to crack under the weight of Ethan's words and the surreal scene before him. Something about this entire situation felt wrong. He turned to the imam, who had remained calm throughout the ordeal, leading the prayers as if nothing had happened. When the prayer ended, the imam turned to Walker and smiled. "Peace be upon you," he said softly, his tone gentle but steady. Walker hesitated, his grip tightening on his weapon. "We received intelligence that this place was being used for illegal activities," he said, his voice hard but uncertain. "What's going on here?" The imam's smile didn't falter. "This is the house of God. We are here to pray, to seek peace, for ourselves and for the world. Nothing more." Walker stood silent, his mind struggling to reconcile the calm demeanor of the imam with the narrative that had brought them here. Meanwhile, Ethan finally reached his breaking point. He lowered his weapon and sat down on the mosque floor, his helmet rolling off as he buried his face in his hands. "I can't do this," he muttered, his voice trembling. "They're not the enemy. They're braver than us. They're stronger than us. I don't know how, but they are." The sight of Ethan abandoning his weapon sent ripples through the team. Some of the other SWAT members exchanged uneasy glances, their own doubts mirrored in his actions. One by one, others began lowering their weapons, unsure of what else to do. Walker looked around, sensing the shift in his team. He felt a strange pull in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. A vulnerability, a crack in the armor of certainty he had built around himself. The imam approached him, still smiling. "You came here with strength and power," he said, his voice soft but unwavering. "But true strength comes from the peace within your heart. That's something no weapon can give you." Walker stared at him, speechless. The imam's words echoed in his mind, resonating in a place he had long ignored. The atmosphere in the mosque had completely transformed. The SWAT team, who had stormed in with force and suspicion, now found themselves disarmed not by weapons, but by something far greater: faith, humility, and an unshakable sense of peace. Walker clenched his fists, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling creeping into his heart. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't ignore the voice in his head, the one that told him everything he thought he knew might be wrong. That night, the seeds of doubt and curiosity were planted in the hearts of the SWAT team. What began as a raid fueled by suspicion was slowly becoming the start of a journey none of them could have anticipated. That night left an imprint on every member of the SWAT team. They came prepared for chaos, but what they encountered was peace, an overwhelming, almost otherworldly peace that lingered in their minds long after they left the mosque. Captain Ryan Walker sat alone in his apartment, staring at the faint glow of the city skyline. He had led countless missions, faced enemies who would stop at nothing, but he had never felt as shaken as he did now. The imam's words echoed in his mind. True strength comes from the peace within your heart. He couldn't stop thinking about the worshippers. How could they remain so calm, so unafraid, even with armed men storming their sacred space? What gave them such unwavering conviction? The questions gnawed at him, refusing to let go. Across town, Ethan Cole felt the same. Unlike Walker, Ethan didn't try to push the feelings away. He had spent hours that night watching videos and reading articles about Islam. He discovered that the verses the imam had recited were from the Quran, the holy book of Muslims. Though Ethan didn't fully understand the words, they stirred something in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next evening, Ethan made a bold decision. He returned to the mosque, unarmed and without his uniform. When he arrived, the imam greeted him warmly. "I didn't think I'd come back," Ethan admitted, his voice hesitant. "But I need answers." The imam nodded. "You're always welcome here. What's on your mind?" Ethan hesitated. The prayers, the recitation, it was powerful. It felt like something I've been missing my whole life. What was it? The imam smiled gently. "That was the Quran, the word of God. It's a guide for those who seek truth and peace. Perhaps your heart is searching for something greater than yourself." Ethan spent hours at the mosque that night, listening to the imam explain the basic teachings of Islam. He learned about Tawheed, the oneness of God, and how Muslims submit themselves to Allah, seeking His guidance in all aspects of life. By the time Ethan left, he felt lighter, as if a weight he hadn't realized he carried had been lifted. Over the next week, more members of the SWAT team found themselves drawn back to the mosque, each for their own reasons. Some sought to understand the people they had misjudged. Others, like Ethan, felt an unexplainable pull. Ryan Walker was the last to return. He resisted as long as he could, but he couldn't silence the voice in his heart. One quiet evening, he walked into the mosque, feeling more nervous than he had in any high-stakes mission. The imam greeted him with the same calm smile. "I've been expecting you." Walker frowned. "How could you know I'd come back?" The imam chuckled softly. "Because truth has a way of calling to the soul, and your soul has been searching for a long time." Walker sat down, his hands clasped tightly together. "I've always thought religion was a crutch, but when I was here, it felt like everything I believed was wrong." The imam listened patiently as Walker poured out his doubts, fears, and confusion. He explained that Islam wasn't about blind faith, it was about understanding, about using reason to find the truth. He shared stories from the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, emphasizing that Islam teaches peace, justice, and humility. That night, Walker felt something shift within him. For the first time in years, he felt at peace, not because he had all the answers, but because he had found a path to seek them. Weeks later, in the same mosque where the SWAT team had once stormed in with weapons drawn, Walker, Ethan, and several of their teammates gathered again. This time there were no guns, no shields, only open hearts. With tears streaming down his face, Ethan was the first to declare his faith, repeating the words of the Shahada, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Walker followed, his voice steady despite the emotion in his chest. One by one, the others joined, until nearly the entire team had embraced the faith they had once misunderstood. The story of the SWAT team's transformation spread quickly, inspiring countless others. The mosque, once a target of suspicion, became a beacon of hope, a place where hearts found peace and truth. For Captain Ryan Walker, the mission that began with force and fear ended with a lesson he would never forget. True strength lies not in power, but in submission to the one who holds all power.